Do we need to get out of this one and join the other one? Is that
No,
what we
we
need to
have
do?
people coming in actually as we speak
Coming
right
in
now.
here.
So you're all set, Nico. Yeah.
Excellent.
Looks
Okay.
like we
Good question.
have some attendees trickling in right now, so we'll just give it a minute and we'll get started.
Will do.
Nico, Eric, this is the awkward point in the webinar where you just kind of just like sit there quietly and smile as we as the audience comes in.
Bennett, can you post the link? I'll share
Yes.
with some team members that may be late to the party.
Thanks everyone from joining. Looks like we have a big group. New York,
Nice.
New Jersey, Seattle. I actually might win right now for furthest attendee. I'm in Amsterdam working out of our office in the Netherlands.
I'm actually Brazil, so I'm
Brazil,
not sure.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be a close one, Nico. Distance from
Based on-
Seattle, I guess, is our measuring mark.
Well, yeah, everything is far away from Seattle. So
Like Amsterdam, beautiful streets, all kind of crooked with the bricks.
Yeah,
Beautiful
and when many
architecture.
of these streets are canals, it's
Yeah, completely. I love it. It's beautiful.
also very sustainable country, Eric, with everyone biking.
Really?
True.
Slightly dangerous, but
Yeah, that's true.
Is it sunny, Bennett, these days?
No.
I mean, you know, we're recording, Nico, so I don't want to talk too poorly about Amsterdam right now. But no, the sun rarely shines here.
That's the thing
we actually had the sun yesterday. I imagine Brazil's a little different.
Okay. I'm based in Argentina. We do get a lot of sun down there. There's a lot of sun here, although it's raining a lot these days. But the days where Amsterdam is sunny, they are glorious. I mean, they are few and far between, but when they come, they're great.
Yeah. Yep. I know Seattle is not necessarily the sunniest either, but it looks like we have a good quorum here. I'm sure a couple people will still join throughout. But why don't we get started, gents, so we can make use of our time and respect everyone. So for those of you that just came in and joined us today, welcome. We're super excited to have you here. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for taking time out of your day to discuss carbon accounting. Webinar title today, Carbon Accounting for Small, Medium-Sized Businesses, Lessons Learned from Microsoft Supplier Standards. So we have two suppliers today with us who work with Microsoft, BirdDog Interactive, Miracle Devs. Really excited to talk with you both to share how you've turned some of this compliance and environmental considerations into business value and stayed ahead of sustainability reporting requirements. And this is a conversation that is taking place in a context of suppliers like Microsoft that are continuing to raise the bar for sustainability and not only ask more of themselves, but realize that in order to achieve their goals, they need to ask more of their suppliers. So folks such as yourself are facing the brunt of that and new accounting requirements, and looking forward to digging into that today. And hopefully, and I know this was the case with both of your teams, but compliance isn't just a box to check. It's a mindset. It's an opportunity for growth, efficiency. Building on that competitive advantage, particularly for two companies that we're speaking with today that have relatively low footprints. That really is a competitive advantage for you. And excited to dig into that in our conversation. But before we get too far into it, just a little bit of housekeeping. Lior gave us some notes. I want to make sure I do my job and get that out at the top. So today's webinar, approximately 45 minutes. We'll have a few minutes at the end for Q&A. So for anybody on today, please submit questions to myself or panelists at any time using the designated Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see that, toss a message in the chat. We're happy to help. And also, we are recording right now. So if you have to go, leave us a little early. Don't worry, completely understand. We're in the middle of most of your days. So everyone who's registered will get a recording, and we can also always have a one-on-one conversation after if there's any particular point that you'd want to follow up. But with that handled, I think that was all my housekeeping. Let me kick off by just doing a quick introduction of myself. So my name is Bennett Saltzman. I am the Chief Customer Officer at Green Project. Green Project, a carbon accounting ESG management platform. And we've been excited to offer carbon accounting as a partner to Microsoft and their suppliers over the past year, and really looking forward to this conversation today, as I mentioned, with two of our favorite clients. So Eric, Nico, I know you also were super excited when you got that compliance letter from Microsoft, but hopefully after a little bit of work together, we were able to maybe get a little closer to that excited point. Let's start by just turning it over to you to introduce yourself. So Eric, would you mind sort of going first and telling us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Yeah, definitely. My name's Eric McCall, as you can see on the badge. The company's name is BirdDog Interactive. We're a creative design agency, and we started working with Microsoft back in about 2008. And our background has always been brand marketing. So when Microsoft had something they wanted to bring to the public, whether it was online or in stores, we were the parent agency that would actually design and come up with everything you would see in regards to taglines, headers, taking their creative, placing it into anything online driven, as well as point of purchase displays, and everything else that comes after that as well. So we've been doing that for what, 16 years, I think, and then Microsoft reached out in regards to the global footprint and looking at our sustainability and our carbon accounting, which was a very interesting ask because it was the first time we've ever heard anything like that. In the history, we'd always looked at how to help Microsoft with their sustainability in regards to using sustainable products, how to make things that were more sustainable to be in their stores and have less of a carbon footprint. But it was the first time we'd ever actually been asked to look at ourselves internally, which was a very interesting process. But I'm going to save that for later on the line, and I'll let Nico jump in here.
Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Yeah, I echo what you just said. We are on a similar path or route there. We are Miracle Devs. I'm Nico Ano. I'm the CEO of the company. We are a software development company, so we do mostly software for third parties. Have been working with the Microsoft bunch for 6 years or something, since 2018. Mostly around the retail experience area. So in a sense, we share verticals, Eric. We work with similar people. Basically, we take care of the retail demo environment for Microsoft. So everything that goes to devices when they are in kiosk or demo mode in retail stores and whatnot. So these days we maintain around 400,000 devices across the world, and have been working with the Microsoft team for this past 6 years, sort of evolving that and making sure that it runs smoothly. We are a small-ish company, around 60 people these days. We have other clients, and it did take us by surprise. Microsoft's requirement for compliance on the sustainability area. So there was sort of a moment where we sort of froze in fear a little bit, but then we started like, what's this, and why does it apply to us, and how can we do it? It's like this big blob that was impossible to sort of grasp. Yeah, we will get to that in a minute. But turned out all right. I gotta admit.
Turned out all right. We'll put that quote on the website, Nico. I think that's high praise right there.
You got it.
So I mean, thank you both for the introductions and eagerness, I think, to have this conversation. For those listening and that maybe aren't as familiar with Microsoft specific requirements, Just really quick context for us today, but suppliers from Microsoft are asked for three things. This is a very simple slide, right? But company emissions, service level emissions, and then moving forward, not quite yet, but eventually you'll be thought of as a resource for renewable energy. Company emissions are your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, upstream scope 3. And in English, that's effectively any emissions from facilities that are under your control, your purchased goods and services, your business travel, employee commuting, categories like that, allow you to deliver the services that you're delivering to Microsoft. And Microsoft's also asking you to prorate that down to a service level. So that can be the specific product that you're delivering, whether that's advisory or number of units of a piece of software that you're delivering, or number of hours that an employee is working for Microsoft, thinking about how you can really provide the granularity into your footprint, but specifically attributed to actions that you're taking for Microsoft. And Microsoft's and other suppliers, since it's not only just Microsoft, are asking their suppliers for this information because it's important for their own purchased goods and services. And they want to be able to more accurately understand the emissions across their supply chain. And doing so entails getting high quality data from companies such as yourself. We'll maybe touch a little bit on renewable electricity in the end, but that's more of the take action once you have some numbers component of their requirements. So as I said, super quick. If anyone has questions on that, we can definitely spend some time after and dig into what specifically Microsoft is asking for. But Eric, I know when you got that email, it maybe wasn't the most clear either. So what was that reaction when you got the compliance letter from Microsoft? It sounds like a little bit of surprise, maybe.
Yeah, I'll definitely dig a little deeper into that. Yeah. It's more than surprise because, I mean, technically you get a lot of emails from Microsoft and they say there's a sustainability webinars to come online, to go watch, and you can watch these videos. Well, like Nico said, we're a rather smaller company. We don't have an individual whose job is only to work on sustainability. And when we're doing projects, working 7 hours a week, honestly, 16 hours a day. I mean, we're doing international, we're doing domestic, we're doing worldwide. So our designers and everybody is working at a very fast pace. So truthfully speaking, in the 2 to 3 months or maybe even 6 months, I don't remember, that Microsoft gives you or allows you to do all these videos to watch and try to figure out what's going on, you don't really get engaged that much because your clients in Microsoft are making you work a lot of hours. So when towards the end of 24, when we got an email, I mean, you see the emails that says you're not compliant, and you go online and you go into the portal and you try to figure it out and answer the questions the best you can. You can't. You literally cannot. No matter how intelligent you are, and no matter how much web searching you can do, you cannot figure out your footprint, and you cannot even get unique answers to some of the terminology they're asking you. I have a lot of friends, and I know a lot of other companies we work with that are all green, they're all sustainability-backed companies. Even asking them the questions, they were kind of confused. So I kind of just shelved it off here. Said, I'm going to do it later. We're going to get to there. Don't worry about it. However, we're in the midst of a project, and a client sends me an email from Microsoft, and it says, Eric, we've received this from procurement suggesting use another vendor to try to finish this up, and/or speak with your vendor to try to get them to become compliant. And that's really when the lights turned on, because we weren't getting a PO opened anymore. And we've been doing something for half a year that extends out throughout next year as well, that we don't have the time to wait, because you can't work on a project until a PO has actually been initiated. So that means everybody at the company, all the designers, everybody's frozen until we can become compliant. And I mean, it was very nerve-wracking. It was a shock. And thankfully, I took some time looking at the site, and that's when I ran into Green Project. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I've heard that story a couple of times, Eric, but I think it really crystallizes. I joked earlier with just pulling up that quick slide about describing what scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 mean in English. But it's true. Like, having a translator for these terms, it's my day to day. I deal with that all the time, but it is a little bit confusing, particularly thinking about the application to your company and all the nuances. And even if you don't have complex emissions generating activities, identifying what is that finite list that we do have, that is so valuable just to take it and translate into English, to be clear.
Yeah, and they're asking 2019 to 2023. So we're going to have to go all the way back to 2019 and look. I mean, upstream emissions. There's terminology that we are completely. Well, how do we calculate that? How do we, if we just did a huge multi-launch throughout the United States where we did all these POP projects, how am I supposed to figure out what our footprint was for shipping, for internal, for products? And thank God you guys were there.
Yeah, I know that was your sustainability manager, Eric. So you're always paired with a person on our team. And I think she trained you up. So are you now capable of running another company through the process? You're fully expert in carbon?
Oh, if it were asked for me, of course, the easiest thing to do would be like, okay, well, we are getting Green Project. We're bringing them in. They are going to do it because you can't do it yourself.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Impossible. So if anybody's listening out there, don't even try. It's not worth it.
Nico, sounds like there might be some agreement there.
No, I fully agree with Eric. There's definitely some hand holding needed through that journey, because the same thing happened to me when I got to a point where when I got there, took a look, did some research on what was being asked of us from us, and the conclusion was the same. There's no way I can do this by myself. But when Green Project came into the picture and we started working together, really the whole sort of fog disappeared. It became much clearer. The direction became clear. The actionables became clear. And I'm with Eric that I may not be able to walk another company through the process myself. Like, where did we turn? I have no idea, but we got there. And I know that in that sense, I mean, it worked out very well throughout the process as we continue to sort of understand what was needed from us and how to get there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in more detail. But I don't want to give this impression that your companies weren't taking sustainability seriously. Eric, I think discussed with the team, and you had been thinking about sustainability all the way back 2009. So maybe just a quick nugget from each of you in terms of the company entering this conversation.
Oh, definitely. I mean, back in 2008, 2009, we actually flew up a rep from FSC, certified, it's Forest Stewardship Council, as well as the Rainforest Alliance. We brought them up to Microsoft. We did a huge sustainability presentation in regards to how we can help bring sustainability to you. That was always in the front of everything that we did. How can we help you guys change your footprint? And it was, it was very interesting. Microsoft definitely listened, and they took certain advantages. It took certain key points out of that. And they did change things. So in store, we changed to, FSC papers. Rainforest Alliance was a little difficult to work with because they wanted to put their branding on everything. And Microsoft's like, no, but we definitely do want to change our footprint, but we're not letting you co-brand with us. But to what you're saying, Bennett, we did take all those responsibilities forward. We definitely took a lighter footprint. We engaged ourselves with these companies that had given us ideas of what to do for sustainability that we brought to our clients. That weren't just Microsoft at the time. We're working with TaylorMade, we're working with Adidas, we're working with REI and North Face. So these are all companies we were working with that we brought that idea to, that we helped spread that idea to. But Microsoft was the first one that sent us something that said, hey, your internal footprint of what you guys are doing, not that you're manufacturing for us, what you guys are actually doing yourselves with your own company, i.e. your employees, your trips, how you're manufacturing, where you're manufacturing. That was the first time we'd ever been asked that. And truth be told, like Nico said, I had to have everything basically turned around in less than a week and a half to get a PO extended for a very large campaign. And thank God the entire team at Green Project jumped on that. And we worked hand in hand, and they actually turned it around. They did it. I got compliant. all the boxes were checked. Microsoft was happy. My clients were ecstatic. And I got to learn obviously a lot more about it, which I'm not going to spoil right now, save it till later. But yeah, I mean, it was difficult, which now I'll let Nico tell his fun story.
No. Thank you, Eric, for that insight. I wouldn't say that our experience with sustainability goes as far back as 2009. I am not saying that I'm younger, although
yeah,
I might.
Sure. I'm not gonna lie and say it wasn't a marketing tool as well to try to get more
of
work.
Of course.
I would not be that naive to not state that.
Of course, but it was present in a way, but back then for us, I think it's a much more recent thing. Also, Ben and Eric, the thing with sustainability for us has always been this thought in the back of our heads that it was something for big companies. It wasn't something for us. We were just too small for it. It didn't make sense. Our footprint was not large enough. There was Eric, like you were saying before, you need a whole department for that. You need a person that's dedicated to it. We don't have the budget for it. We can see other companies doing it, especially larger companies. But for us, it didn't sound like a good fit or something that was possible. Fast forward to 2024, like over the past few months, the first alert that we had on this on sustainability was ISO. We are ISO 27001 certified. So ISO is changing standards, and we are now having to recertify for the new standard this year. And they were already telling us, the auditors were already telling us, hey guys, you will need to certify for sustainability because this is going across all ISO certifications. This is no longer something that's specific for environmental or sustainability oriented ISO standards, but rather for everything. That was the first alert. This was some point last year. I say, okay, we might need to do something about this in the future. How or when or in which way, we have no idea, but we will need to do something. And then this requirement by Microsoft came. It wasn't in the middle of a PO. It didn't delay a PO for us. It didn't. I mean, our stakeholders didn't bring it up to us. I am so glad they did, because I mean, I don't know how you keep the cool, Eric, in that situation. I mean, you don't. I mean, you did, but Green Project did. That's good to know. Because I mean, if we were negotiating a year retainer or 6-month project, and we were sort of being put against the wall with a weak deadline for compliance, I'd be out of my mind.
Nico, I know you completed this pretty quickly, but Eric, I think you set a speed record for, you got your onboarding instructions and then maybe next day sent us all the information we had requested. So Godspeed in that. And yeah, I was just gonna say, building on that point, clearly thinking about sustainability, right sizing it for your companies, your top of mind. But getting those specific numbers, your scope 1, your scope 2, what is your scope 3, cat 4, upstream transportation logistics? That's a whole other challenge to actually be able to quantify this specifically. So let's get into the nitty gritty here. So Eric, as I said, you set a speed record. But what was your experience with carbon accounting? What was hard maybe to collect for data? What was a little bit easier? Any insights from that process?
Sure. So the first way to explain the carbon accounting is before I worked with Green Project. So I went online and I answered all these questions and went to all these different things that would give you the carbon footprint of your upstream. It would tell you what your company's transmissions were, what your employees were. However, it wasn't true. None of it was. I would do multiple different online web portal places I'd go to, and none of it matched. So it didn't make sense because I was using the same data. So that's pre-working with Green Project. And I'm not just trying to say how great you guys are. You obviously were. But then when I did engage with you guys, and I did give you that information, we worked together. The entire team jumped in. I mean, Ozette, Gideon, everybody turning it around, giving me the information. And then, like you'd mentioned, Bennett, as well, it then allows you to understand that information. So we're looking at our employees, we're looking at, you know, how many are driving to work every single day, what their modes of transportation are, what our carbon footprint is from that. Because our creative design agency is located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have a lot of people, we have a lot of designers that work in Mesa, a lot that work in Phoenix, you know, all in different places, which did allow us to then kind of look at the idea of, well, can designers work more from home? Is that a possibility? You know, in a design agency world, you really don't want to allow that. You want them all internal because you need your creative director on them all day long. So it definitely made us rethink how our work cycle is going to be and how can we eliminate some of this carbon footprint that we're getting in regards to allowing them, hey, maybe they can work at home from Friday, maybe they can work at home from a Wednesday. Or do we want to do something where we have an offsite meeting, you know, somewhere that's different, that's more neutral? So it actually is having us to really think where we have our offices and do we want to move our offices?
Yeah.
So a lot of deep thinking on that one.
Yeah, and the more specific data you have, the more decision useful it can be. I was just working with another supplier, not on the call today, but you know they were considering actually between Scottsdale and I think Seattle was the location for another offsite. So we're able to think about, you know, what is the average hotel emissions in Scottsdale? It's going to be higher than it is in Seattle. Maybe we want to think about you know, making a more localized decision there. So Eric, that's a really interesting insight from the analysis.
Yeah, but that's huge with the client you're talking about because you really have to think about that because your footprint's lower with more metro, with being able to take you know, modes of transportation that are available for you versus having to get into a car and go drive 35, 40 minutes sitting on a freeway begging your head.
Yeah.
So when companies are moving to places and locations, like you stated, like we're looking at, you got to be really cognizant of those places and what's the easiest way for these individuals to get there. And Seattle really does have a great, I mean, Microsoft's been doing that where they have a shuttle that comes pick people up, stops, brings them from, you know, like Redmond, Bellevue to all their little different places that you can take advantage of as well as a vendor. So you never even have to rent a car when you fly up there because you just get on their shuttle, take it into downtown, and work there. Which are also
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Also, apologies, my thinking of sustainability, we have these lights on a timer and it thinks I'm leaving my room, so they keep turning off and turning on again. I have to give it a little wiggle there. Nico, let's turn it over to you for your experience, you know, trying to take this from the abstract to the specific. Any insights to what was easy, what was hard? I know you also had, you know, some colleagues who were excellent to work with that supported this project.
Yeah, I of course the first sort of like the first impression was this was going to be hard, like coming out from that first email, that first contact. When we started actually collecting the data, it didn't turn out to be that painful. I am going to say that there's a lot of data to collect to actually get a fulfill the requirement, but it's I am starting to take it like one step further. I think Eric did, and the same thing is happening to us. So it's interesting how taking one step further, like not thinking about the compliance requirements, but rather visibility on carbon footprint data over the past 4 or 5 years for us. Like, okay, let's take the compliance part to the side and just focus on seeing what is the company like? How have we been working around our footprint? Not that we did, but how did it grow over the past 5 years? And how can we measure it? How can we track it? We come from software. We want to track everything. That's our job. We like tracking, and if we are not tracking, then we cannot decide. Like we cannot make a call. We cannot, or sometimes we end up doing it, but we don't feel good about it. Like we need visibility before we actually start managing stuff. So building this data set around carbon footprint has been sort of aligning in many ways, and it boiled down. There was some information that was difficult to find from back to, I don't know, 2019, mostly because our records were not good enough. It didn't have to do with the process itself, but rather with the fact that we weren't recording in a very structured way. in the way that we are recording now, again, with ISO and with more standardization. And from now on, recording and tracking will be much better because we know what to track. So what I'm going to say is that it took a little bit of effort to track down paperwork and bills and data from 5 years to this point. Once we got to that point, and once we got the entire data there, structuring it, visualizing it, and seeing what to do with it has become much easier. And we plan on keeping that being easier on the times to come. I think, and this may come later on, but I think, Eric, you're spot on in this idea that it all of a sudden it turns out that emissions and sustainability is another benchmark of the company, another area that we are now tracking and deciding based on it. There are a lot of decision factors that come into play when we are make every business decision that we make, and now sustainability is one of them. And we have tools to sort of decide based on that, and it starts with the data. So to your point, Bennett, took a little bit of effort. Once we got it in place, we have all the data now, and it becomes much more easier to track from here.
Yeah. And I mean, and Nico, you know this, but like one of the outputs of every engagement is like, what are those opportunities for improvement? Because we'd be naive to think on the first pass you necessarily have everything as perfect as it can be, right? So this is iterative. Microsoft certainly is allowing companies to iterate and to improve over time, and that's not only for their emissions reduction plans, but also updating your methodologies as long as they're GHG protocol compliant. And whether it's getting more detailed business travel data or finding more detail on one of their facilities that maybe we weren't able to fully capture. Our team has workarounds. We'll collaborate with you to get to that point, but you always have opportunities for improvement in this space. Mm-hmm. One thought just jumping out at me based off of your comment, Nico, was your mention that this is just another metric for businesses these days, and another thing that you need to track. And I love that mentality of getting as much data as you can to track this. I know we're relatively early after resolving that compliance issue with Microsoft, and sounds like Microsoft was one of the first requests for you. But have you started to think about maybe customer loyalty or operational efficiency or any other metrics or any other avenues that you might have to use this information to differentiate the company with some of your other customers moving forward? Because it's not necessarily just Microsoft. If we can make this more valuable, that'd be great.
I definitely see, I definitely see this as being a part of the value proposition that we bring to the table for new clients, as we did with other tracking and standardization of process across the company. Every time we sort of solidify and become better at managing an aspect of the business, we are always putting that on the table for the clients, because it also translates to them. Bennett, the fact that when a company brings in a vendor or a supplier that's knowledgeable, or at least has some degree of certification on a certain area, they are also purchasing that certification on that service, and that is like sort of an intangible. Maybe it doesn't come out at first. You're not necessarily a consultant for sustainability, but you are employing a company that is certified, or that has a track record of caring for this as a benchmark in their business, and that translates into the services that you get. So I definitely see that playing a role over the next few months and years on the sales process and pipeline. And I'm going to add another one, which is something that we thought about internally. Again, we're in software. Software has a thing with people. It's difficult to hire, train, retain people. So our internal customers play a big role in the business that we get. Like you're selling in both directions every time. You're selling to your clients and you're selling to your prospects or internal clients or employees or employees to be. And in that sense, managing the carbon footprint is becoming more and more a key value differentiator between companies. And employees and people are actually seeking, like looking for it. It's no longer irrelevant. So if they have two offerings and one of them is committed to tracking, managing, lowering their carbon emissions, and the other just an afterthought, never thought about it, which again, no judgment there. We've been there like a year. We were there a year ago. I can definitely see how that's possible. But for a prospective employee, seeing that attitude also brings another differentiator to the table that can help them sway sort of in a direction or the other. So definitely value there.
Yeah. I mean, Eric, same question for you, although I do know you probably had the most immediate ROI possible with an open PO. So maybe slightly different perspective there, but broadening
Keeping
outside of that. Yeah, exactly. What are you thinking in terms of more value add?
It's interesting. I have two perspectives because I obviously have the one perspective of myself. I mean, I love the adventures. I love being outdoors. I've surfed for over 40 years. There is a lot of my daily habits that are always eco-conscious, no plastic water bottles. We don't do any of that. So there is that, but there's also the marketing sales guy in me, right? So that's why I'm going to share the opposite. Nico gave you a great perception and idea of why it's so important for your company, especially with ISO, because yeah, you nailed that, Nico. That's totally true. It's ridiculous how many ISO certifications we have to get. However, from the marketing advertising perspective with new clients, in the future, majority of all of our clients and the majority of all the top 500 companies out there are going to have to look at their carbon footprint, and they're going to have initiatives that are going to be stipulated on them saying you need to bring them down. You have to. So from a marketing perspective, to be able to say, hey, well, at BirdDog Interactive, we're working with Microsoft, we became compliant, and here's the steps that we've had. We'd like to bring that to the table to you. It's an advantage for my company going in to try to get work, not only because we're that great at doing design work and that fast and turning it around. And I'm not trying to say this like with some kind of I'm just trying to be truthful. It's a great way to get your foot in the door with other companies and also to educate them as well. I mean, when we went to Microsoft in 2009 to do this, our environmental eco footprint, use more sustainable products, it was to get our foot in the door with more people. It was, yes, we did care. We really did, because we weren't just working with Microsoft at the time. We were working with a lot of other clients at the time that we were doing those initiatives for. But from the sales and marketing perspective, it got us in the door to see them, because it wasn't like just every other ad agency out there trying to get the work. So I'm trying to share with everybody the two sides of it. One, it's great because we're obviously helping the environment. We're taking the processes forward to grow our company and be smart about what our waste is and what our clients' waste are. But two, it's a great way to get in the door. Disney, for example, is doing the same initiatives. We do work from Disney. We do stuff on the side for some of their movies. It's stuff that they want you to do. So to be able to say, hey, you know what? I am certified. These are the things that we're doing internally. Are you working on them? Who knows? You might even be able to answer some of their questions because they're going to be just as lost as you were when you were doing it. So hopefully that kind of answers it. I was just trying to take that where my company can hopefully get more business.
And to add to that, Eric, Bennett, you were saying before this decision about like Seattle or Scottsdale, like based on the carbon emission footprint of hotels. We are not far off from being asked about carbon emissions when we budget for projects, because when a company is purchasing from us, they are purchasing, of course, a service, and they're going to have to pay for that service. But the more conscious or the more involved companies are with lowering their carbon emissions, they will also be concerned on what level of carbon emissions are you bringing to the table when they purchase off of you. So when they will ask, okay, how much is this going to cost me? And now how many emissions are you going to make by doing this? And if I mean, it may become, we're not far off from that becoming an actual part of the quoting process, and the better, I mean, the sooner we start with this, like the head start that we have, the better position we will be in when this becomes like everywhere or becomes seamless. Like,
yeah,
you're absolutely right, Nico. 100%.
I mean, and we're talking about Microsoft, one of the more mature companies in this space, has an internal price of carbon, is very forward thinking. All credit to them, but to both your points, this is not just exclusive to Microsoft, and we're seeing the wave across many other supply chain companies. And if you'll indulge me with a just quick plug, it's very much the intentionality behind Green Project. How can we make this easy for you, from carbon accounting, securing compliance, and then with our integrated renewable energy marketplace, next year, how can you even think about procuring renewable energy and do it all in one shop and make it as simple, not to trivialize it, right? Because it's not simple, but make it as simple as possible. Guys, we've been really having a good conversation here. I seem to have lost track of time, so we have five more minutes. I saw one or two questions come in, and we'll get to those in a second. But before we do, why don't we just wrap up with a last word of advice, if you don't mind, for anybody that might be listening that maybe take your head back to where you were a few months ago. If you could give one piece of advice to your small medium-sized business that feels overwhelmed by climate compliance, what would it be? Eric, if you want to kick us off, then we'll give Nico the last word here.
Sure. It's very confusing, and it's a terminology that you can't relate to. So you can try internally as much as you want to do it, but we don't have the time. You don't have the money. So the easiest thing to do, and I'm just saying this from the beginning, is Green Project. Because if I engaged Green Project, I had a full team. They asked me questions. We got them the answers for those questions. If I had done that earlier, I would not have been stressing out in November and December, and I would not have been freaking out, and I wouldn't have had my clients freaking out, wanting to stop because we can't get POs, because we can't be engaged, because we can't go forward. So my advice would be, do your due diligence, get what you need to do, start working immediately with Green Project, because what's now happening with some of the stuff that we're being asked for is, what is our footprint for next year? What is our footprint for the year after that? How are we going to take those footprint and make them less? Well, we plan on growing as a company. We've always grown. We've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, your footprint gets, i.e., bigger, bigger, and bigger. It doesn't get smaller. But we're being told we need it to be smaller. So, I mean, that's the second enormous benefit to Green Project, because they're going to be there. They're going to hold our hands. Yes, you are, Bennett. You're going to help us. We're going to have to figure out how we can make a less footprint.
Yeah.
How are we going to be able to, when we're growing, especially when you're a small and medium-sized company, because your next 5 to 10 years, you're going to double in size.
Yeah. But maybe on the service level emissions, Eric, it'll be a different story, which is, again, credit to Microsoft distinguishing between service level and total company. But again, that's getting in the weeds, and very much appreciate the sentiment and agree on the essence there. Nico, maybe a word of advice from you.
Yeah, I just to piggyback on Eric's comment there. I fully see and agree with this scaling of the company. As the company grows, what happens with emissions, and what I like about tackling this early on, or early-ish on, is that it allows us to scale the company without necessarily scaling emissions along with it. Because we're always concerned about making like efficiency tweaks here and there, so that as we scale, we don't bring inefficiencies to a larger scale. And this is definitely plays a role, like tweaking emissions in such a way that they don't scale up as the company grows is definitely something that's top of mind. One word of advice, if I were to give one, Bennett, is if as a small company you're on the fence of working on this or working on this aspect of your company, and you have the ability to make this call, do it. The sooner you do it, I think it's the better it is. I also agree with Eric in that it opens up doors, and it makes us better prepared for what's coming. This is not going away. This is starting, and it's only going to get more permanent, it will get more room, it will become more of a decision driver over the next few years. So if you're on the verge, do it. If you are not on the verge, or you have not been considering doing it, then start considering it. Even if you don't have an immediate sort of requirement, such as the PO blocker like Eric has. I really hope it never happens to us. But even if you don't have a blocker or an immediate need, start considering it, because in the end, with the right partner, and again, we took Green Project, I'm sure there are others, you guys really worked for us. We had a great experience. It was easy you were easy to work with, have a very good system in place, and we were able to sort of breathe through it over a month or so. And it really got to a better place. So with this partner, or definitely agree with that, involving a partner is necessary. It's not a journey that can be taken alone.
Yep, agreed. Thank you both for your insight and your willingness to share those stories with everyone today. We're close to time. Actually, we're at time, but we have 3 good questions. Maybe we can speed run through those. If anyone needs to drop,
sure.
Completely understand.
I can say.
Okay, great. Nico, one question for you. What was that ISO certification that you had mentioned securing?
That's 27001, which is information security, cyber security. So that's the one that we are compliant with. And in the 2022 standard, which is the latest one, we are certified in the one before that, but the new one has sustainability points.
Yeah, and then any certification from Microsoft, in case that was the question, would be more just compliance with their emissions reporting standards. That was 2019, 2023 data. And then upcoming in June will be your 2024 carbon footprint, and upcoming the next June will be your 2025 carbon footprint. So that's exactly the other. Yeah.
Bennett, don't forget to mention that you have to have a letter of attestation.
True.
That has to say that numbers are and everything matched up, and we can't write our own letters of attestation. It doesn't work that way. So that's another reason why Green Project is so key, because our data and our info. So I mean, that's for everybody else listening. That's a huge requirement.
No, and we actually had gotten a question on that as well around the relationship here. So to build on Eric, exactly what you were saying, Green Project is one of 2 providers that are deemed by Microsoft as eligible to write that consultant's letter for you. You also have the option of calculating your own footprint. Eric, sounds like maybe you tried to plug into a couple. Yeah, and if you did that, you would need to have assurance from an auditor. So either way, there's going to be a little bit of a requirement to have it validated, in order to allow them to trust the information. And Green Project, we've done a ton of legwork, through that great partnership with Microsoft to understand their requirements, make sure that we can translate that as effectively and as cleanly to you, and be able to provide that sign off, combining the software with the sustainability managers each of you worked with to translate those requirements and make sure your inventories were compliant with their standards. So those were 2 questions, and then we'll wrap with this last one, which I think it's a question we've gotten from several suppliers that we've worked with. I think it's very valid. Eric, maybe we can get your thoughts first. What concerns do you have with how buyers use your emissions data? Is that something that's crossed your mind, with maybe being hesitant to share some of this information?
Well, it does. I mean, immediately you don't want to share that information.
Yeah.
Because you want that to be seen in a distracting way in which you're negotiating a deal or trying to, get the project. So it is in the top of your mind, because obviously, as Nico had demonstrated earlier and said, clients are going to be looking at that, and that will be used in the bidding process. So in the very beginning, I didn't want to share any of that. I don't want to do that. That's my first thought. But then after working with you guys, understanding what our project, what our emissions, what our carbon footprint was, how we can make it smaller, I'm not as worried anymore, because now I actually can answer those questions. If the client says, well, hey, Eric, it looks here in your surface levels emissions, you guys are really high up here. What are you going to do? then I can just say, well, here's the steps that we've taken forward internally, and we found out new ways in which we can actually do manufacturing as well as doing our own design online and blah, 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 and the feedback from our server and how much this and that. We can give them the information of what we're doing to make that less. And I think that any client in the right mind would understand that and go forward with you. I don't think they'd hold that back and say, well, you know, that was pretty high, because the whole objective is every year to get less and less and less. And
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'll just add on to that as far as the level of data that you are sharing, you know, your green project team, it's going to sort of open the book and get pretty deep into your company, look at line by line expenses, but you're going to aggregate that when you share it with one of your clients. So they're not going to see necessarily the nitty gritty around your emissions. Exactly. And it'll also be contextualized based off of the services that you're providing, where you know they'll likely have visibility already into how much they're paying you. So hopefully some of that maybe information could be removed. But Nico, any thoughts on that subject?
No, I think that is absolutely correct. I think the first thought that came to mind at that point for us was a little bit about like this feeling that we are sort of opening the door to the kitchen to the client, and we don't really want to do that. Like this door, that side of the door is for us to care about, and you shouldn't be caring about that. Like just eat your meal and we'll be okay. But as we understood the process a little bit more and understood how blurred it is, because ultimately there's a lot of work on our side to make that calculation, like separate those expenses, understand what we are spending in energy, in waste, how we are managing our waste. A lot of work, and it gets only deeper. I mean, as we will move forward, I'm sure that it will get deeper. But once we are done with all that work, we get to a point where we have a number or a set of numbers. And that set of numbers, they are not the secret sauce. They are not the way we do things. They are just a snapshot of the emissions that we are using at this point to produce what we do. And as Eric was saying, this is the high point, in the sense that we expect this to become more efficient as we move forward, because we are now looking at it. So in the end, I think it doesn't become a concern, at least for me, no more than sharing other sensitive information about the company. Maybe it's not something that you will make public in your website, maybe not necessarily. I don't think we are at that point yet, or that we will always ever be, but I definitely see it taking place in within an NDA and within a private conversation with a client. I see those numbers being disclosed. I don't have a problem with that.
You know, you mentioned this isn't your secret sauce, Nico, but I think it's pretty clear that you do have a secret sauce. You as well, Eric. Like your energy today, infectious. Really appreciate the willingness to engage in this conversation and the insight that you've been able to bring to the table. So it's been great to collaborate with both of you, and we really do appreciate the partnership here, and we're happy to support you and continue to do so. So Eric, Nico, thank you. To everyone else, you can expect a recording in your inbox in the coming days. If you had any questions, I saw just another one toss in there. And if we had any questions that we didn't get to, encourage you to reach out to our team. More than happy to walk you through anything that might still be at top of mind in greater detail. And thank you again for taking the time out of your day to join us. Have a wonderful rest of the day, wherever that may find you. In a gray Seattle, Amsterdam, or sunny Austin, wherever it might be. Really appreciate it. And cheers, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. Thank you.